Hey, what's good, fam? Kyle Henderson along with Clint Lamb, both of BamaInsider.com, coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Clint, some major news broke. It was kind of floated around on the message boards regarding JoJo Earle. Let's dive right into it. Give a rapid reaction on the injury of JoJo Earle. First, what is his exact injury? And then let's kind of dive into it based on what Saban said.
Jones fracture.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a foot injury. It's going to keep him out between 6 to 8 weeks. Nick Saban said that he hopes to have him back, hopefully by the beginning of October. I think he mentioned October 1st, which I think if that ends up being the case, that's about best case scenario with something like this, especially with Alabama's first 4 games on the schedule with Louisiana, Lafayette, Vanderbilt, Utah State, Texas. Going on the road to Texas is, it makes it that much tougher. But the other 3 games at least kind of allows for some time missed if they can get him back in early October. That's the hope.
Here with Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. Now, when we kind of look to last season with JoJo Earle, who was also injured last season, this season. I mean, I think it's obviously just a coincidence. He's not. People are so quick to say that he's injury plagued, and there's something wrong with him. Look, it's a foot injury. I mean, probably nothing more to it. But I wanted to ask you about this, Clint. When we kind of look at the injuries thus far, the injuries are already racking up, and we're barely in August, like early August. It's August 10th.
Yeah, I think that obviously, when you talk about JoJo Earle potentially being the starting slot receiver, and you talk about Cameron Latou being your starting tight end, now you're talking about 2 weapons in the passing game, 2 of Bryce Young's top returning weapons from last year. You got some new guys who have been added, but yeah, I mean, you say a lot of stuff starting to mount up here a little bit. Most of it is young guys who you weren't really expecting a whole lot of contributions from. I do think that it's important to note that Aaron Anderson is one of those guys who is banged up right now or is injured. It's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back. That would have been one of the guys that I think could have made an immediate contribution as far as replacing JoJo Earle in the slot. I also think there's some other guys, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, here pretty soon. But yeah, I do think that when you start getting some of these starters injured, now you got to start figuring out who's going to replace those guys. And this is, we know Bryce Young's comfortable with Cameron Latou. We know that he has some familiarity with JoJo Earle. So yeah, I don't think Alabama can afford too many more injuries.
You look at the injuries thus far. You have Cameron Latou, minor knee injury. Elijah Pritchett, torn pectoral. You have Isaiah Hastings came in with an injury, should be back soon. Aaron Anderson, as you mentioned, with a knee injury, and then you have JoJo Earle, fractured foot. Clearly, JoJo Earle, slated to be the slot guy. Clint, you wrote an article today on Bama Insider talking about where does Alabama go now into their first scrimmage when you look at that slot position? Let's kind of talk a little bit about that. Guys who you expect to step up in that place. I'm sure you're going to mention Christian Leary, but let's kind of talk about that slot position and where Alabama could potentially go going forward.
Yeah, Christian Leary is the first name that people are going to mention, right? Because he also was a part of that 2021 recruiting class. He was also a top 60 prospect, I think like number, 57 or 59 overall, according to the On3 consensus. I think he was the number 8 receiver in that class, very talented guy. And so, and one of the big reasons why people are going to bring him up is not necessarily what he did last year. He kind of was forced to make a mid-season move to running back due to injuries. And I think a lot of times when that happens, guys become an afterthought. But he really put himself back on the map when it comes to fans back during the A-Day game when he was, I think it was 5 catches for like 106 yards and a touchdown. He was the only player to score a touchdown. He led both teams in receptions, receiving yards, and targets as well. He had 10 targets in that game. It was against the second team defense. I do think that that's worth noting, but this is a very explosive player. He looks like a slot receiver. He plays a little bit bigger than maybe his size would indicate at 175 pounds. But I think that he can do a lot of different things for you. I think he can do the typical slot receiver stuff on the short to intermediate routes, but also I think that this guy, can win vertically. He's one of the fastest players on the team. I think that that's an element that Alabama had in its offense last year. I loved when they lined up Jamison Williams in the slot and let him press seams and press safeties and carry defenses vertically. I think that was very difficult to defend. And so having a guy like Christian Leary, if he's the guy that ends up stepping up, which that's kind of what we're expecting right now, then I think that Alabama can add that element in the slot with a vertical presser, back to the offense they're going to have this year, which I think is pretty big.
Here with Clint Lamb of BamaInsider, we actually have Coach Saban talking about JoJo Earle. We'll play that clip. Give me 1 second. I'll add that. And then I have a couple other wide receiver related questions for you. But let's get to Saban real quick. It was a good Saban presser. I love the opening, by the way.
When you had so much success for so long.
He's talking about Larry Fitz, who visited the team, but he gives an update. Let's get to that minute mark. Here's Saban talking about the injury of JoJo Earle.
Things are probably 6 to 8 weeks. So we just have to see how it goes. But hopefully, maybe by October 1st or something like that, he'll be close to being ready to come back. But he was doing a really, really good job, having a really good camp. Probably the best he's been on a consistent basis. You just saw a guy that grew up and was playing with a lot of confidence. So we'll miss him for a while, but we want him to get well, and I'm sure he'll contribute to the team at some point in time this year.
If you're just joining us here with Clint Lamb talking about a rapid reaction, talking about JoJo Earle's foot injury. Clint, when we look at this wide receiver room and we talk about the wide receiver, so far what we've learned in the early practice is it seems like Jermaine Burton is going to be that guy. He's had high praise from Bryce Young. He continues to receive high praise from Nick Saban. We've also heard from Ja'Cory Brooks. And I thought it was interesting that they gave us Ja'Cory Brooks to speak to in the media room, basically saying, look, this is one of our proven guys from last year. He's coming back to this year with a lot to prove. He's going to be an asset. People keep asking about Tyler Harrell. We haven't received any footage from him. Nick Saban said that he was a little bit ambiguous about whether he was injured or if it was a kind of mentality. But Bryce Young did have some positive things to say about Tyler Harrell. We know that JoJo Earle, Aaron Anderson, those two guys are injured. We also have learned that Alabama has some really big wide receivers that are younger. Kendrick Law looks like a beast. Shaz Preston. I think you could even list Amari Niblack as someone who's wide receiver / tight end, kind of that, big tight end that we're all hoping Jaleel Billingsley would one day be. Talk about this wide receiver room and kind of the pieces that they each have.
Yeah, first of all, I think, when you talk about the JoJo Earle injury, the reason that I focus so, exclusively on replacing him in the slot, because that's where he's going to predominantly play, right? I mean, that's he spent a huge percentage of his snaps last season in the slot. But I think that when you're talking about potential replacements, Alabama, in a lot of ways, they have guys. Alabama's receivers, they're going to be lining up kind of all over the place. They have guys who can do a lot of different things for them. They're not all going to be exclusively lining up in one way or the other. A guy like Jermaine Burton, he's got, he's a true number one receiver who's got the ability to align in multiple positions for you. And I think that that's a great place to start. But when you look at the group as a whole, right now, I think that they have a lot more certainty as far as their, more perimeter receivers. Ja'Cory Brooks is more of a perimeter guy. Tyler Harrell, he can line up a little bit in the slot, but he's going to be, predominantly a perimeter guy. Trayshawn Holden, same thing. He can line up in the slot, but really more of a perimeter guy. We thought that was going to be Jermaine Burton, and I still think it's going to be. I think he only spent roughly about 19 to 20% of his snaps in the slot in his 2 seasons at Georgia. I think he's capable of doing more than that, and he might have to with JoJo Earle being injured. But I also think that, he's going to play outside quite a bit as well. So I look at it and I say, okay, they've got guys on the outside, which I think affords them the ability to maybe move Jermaine Burton a little bit more, kick him inside the slot if they need to, because it can, do a lot of that stuff underneath as well. Very savvy route runner, very smooth player. So I think that that's important to note. But it's a good combination of skill sets. When you lose a guy like JoJo Earle, who I think provided a lot of explosiveness. He did have a little bit of trouble catching the football, whether it be last season or during the spring. But when he had the football in his hands, it's very hard to argue how dynamic he was and how he could create yardage after the catch. And when you have that type of presence underneath, on top of having Jahmyr Gibbs, on top of having some, vertical threat like Tyler Harrell, who we think is going to be Tyler Harrell, that can really make your offense very tough to defend. So it's a good combination of skill sets. I still think Alabama is, fine. I think Earle added an element that was very needed, but I think Alabama will be able to get by, but they can't afford too many more injuries here.
Here with Clint Lamb of BamaInsider. I will take your calls around the 20-minute mark of this video, just kind of bringing everyone up to speed on the injury. Let's actually hear from Coach Saban talking about this wide receiver room. He was asked about kind of the progression. Here's Coach Saban when asked about the wide receivers.
So, Ja'Cory Brooks is doing really well, very competitive, smart, plays with a lot of toughness, very physical, doing a good job. He's got really good hands. And all the other guys, they're making progress. They're better. They're getting better. I think they're, doing a pretty good job. But I think there's a lot of competition at that position between new guys, transfer guys, freshmen, old guys coming in. So be interesting to see how they do when, we scrimmage on Saturday. I'm kind of different than everybody else. A lot of these coaches we got, they want to get in the huddle and tell everybody what to do. Well, unless you get in the huddle in the game and tell them what to do, we got a problem. So sometimes you got to let the players play. So when we go to a scrimmage, we'll see what they know. We'll see how they do, how much confidence they play with, and that'll go a long ways for us to make an evaluation of, is this guy, where is he in his development relative to being ready to play winning football for us?
All right, that was Coach Saban talking about the wide receivers. Clint, I wanted to ask you about Chris Braswell. A lot of people have been talking about him. There was some stats that were floated around that says that he can bench 715 pounds, or squat 715 pounds, and that he's just an animal in the weight room. Coach Saban talked a little bit about him today. Before we go to Coach Saban's comments, your take on this edge rushing group that Alabama has behind William Anderson and Dallas Turner, because there's a lot of guys within that group that are ultra talented. Your thoughts on Chris Braswell, then we'll play Coach Saban's clip.
Well, it's like Nick Saban said, it's a very deep group. It's a very talented group, probably the most talented position on the roster. And they certainly got other talented positions. I mean, running back, quarterback is certainly talented. But when you look at the outside linebackers, you got the best football player in the country in Will Anderson. You've got a guy who I think he's getting a lot of recognition, but I don't think people realize, if he's not the second best pass rusher in the country, he's probably the third, or at the very least the fourth. He's certainly up there. And when you throw that on top of having the absolute best, who is head and shoulders above everybody else, on top of having a guy like Chris Braswell, that's such a special group and a special combination. And that's exactly why Alabama is kind of being forced to figure out ways to get all three of these guys in the field. I don't know how much they'll be able to do it because, you're going to have to, it's like I said before, you don't want to have, Will Anderson or Dallas Turner ceding too many snaps. But Chris Braswell, he's a guy who came in, and I think it's important to note, and Nick Saban brought it up, and I'm sure we'll hear in a second, but this was a guy who played pretty much exclusively with his hand in the dirt in high school. And then he gets to Alabama, and you got to learn to be able to play in space a lot more. You got to learn to be, a stand-up player. You're dropping into coverage, and that's going to make him a lot more valued to NFL teams whenever that time comes. This has been very beneficial for him, but it took some time. And, now that he's able to do that with a little bit more consistency and he's gotten better at it, he's able to just do what he does, which is get after the quarterback, and he's very good at it. And another thing that Nick Saban brought up, which I think is very important when it comes to a pass rusher, you've got finesse rushers and you've got power rushers. But when you got a guy who is going to be explosive, can beat you with speed like Chris Braswell, but he also has the ability to convert speed to power, that is such a dynamic thing. And for people that don't know what that is, it's essentially your first couple of steps off the snap, you're using speed, And then when the tackle's taking a deep pass set, you're able to immediately convert speed to power, and you're able to essentially bull rush him into the quarterback. That is such a special, trait for a pass rusher to have. No one, in my opinion, I've never seen anybody do that as well as Khalil Mack. He had so many different ways of doing it. He could also do it the opposite way. He could convert power to speed. Very special player. And Chris Braswell, he's not Khalil Mack in that area, but the fact that Nick Saban is specifically bringing up that trait that he has, that's something that a lot of guys can't say. So Alabama's got a very talented group, a very talented threesome there at outside linebacker.
Here's Coach Saban talking about Chris Braswell.
Need the power. He's got a much better understanding of what he's supposed to do on defense, playing outside backer. It takes guys a little bit of time who have their hand in the dirt all the time when they're in high school, and then we try to teach them how to play standing up, which is a good fit for a lot of guys because they're not really big enough to be defensive ends, especially at the next level. So if they can play outside backer and then they can rush on third down, that creates tremendous value when they learn how to play standing up. And he has learned that, and he's improved at, the pass coverage part of it, but he's a really good rusher. He's got great first step quickness. And look, you can be quick and fast, but if you can't turn speed to power, you're never going to be an effective rusher. So, and he can do that really well. So I think we have three guys there right now that are really good players at outside backer.
All right, that's Coach Saban talking about Chris Braswell. Clint, I also wanted to ask you about J.C. Latham. You recently had a great video. I recommend that everybody go check it out on our YouTube channel. You got a lot of feedback, by the way. Great job, Clint. And one of the things that I'm always talking to our staff about is perfect audio. And Clint is like a dream in that aspect because he has the best audio out of anybody else that I've ever worked with. So Clint, pat yourself on the back. The audio is, I need it to be perfect, right? I mean, let me ask you guys out there, have you ever watched a Netflix show and had bad audio? The answer is no, right? I mean, it's got to be perfect. Those are the expectations of Bama Insider. Clint, talk to me about the offensive line a little bit more in detail around J.C. Latham. Seems like J.C. Latham is going to be that guy that we feel can really step up for this offensive line. There's some vets returning for this offensive line, but we're looking for a tackle to really grab the bull by the horns. Do you think that J.C. Latham is going to be that guy that will pipe in Saban?
Yes, I do. And hearing Nick Saban talk about the progress that he's made from a talent standpoint, we always knew it was there. This was a 5-star plus talent coming out of high school, coming out of IMG. He had played against, some great competition in high school, had done extremely well, played guard last year, going from playing in space and having to worry about edge speed to playing in a phone booth. And then you've got to become a lot more physical. I think, it's a very different change of pace, but for J.C. Latham, I think it benefited him because I think he plays with a lot more physicality nowadays than he was, when he got to Alabama, because you have to be a lot more physical playing inside. And I think that presence, having it out there at right tackle, I think could be absolutely huge. I think he's still going to be an adequate pass protector. Is he going to be perfect? Probably not. I still think there's some growing pains that are probably going to occur, but he's playing with a physical style. He's now, a lot more mature. He now understands what he's being asked to do. He understands the system. And I think that's huge for Alabama's offensive line. I also want to point out that Nick Saban brought up that both tackles, he's been pleased with both tackles. And he didn't say anybody by name. Does that mean Kendall Randolph? I mean, I don't know. I will say this. If you look through those practice videos and those practice photos, I'd always seen Tyler Steen in any time that we saw him. I saw him working with what looked like the second team group. Today, he was out there. It looked like Javian Cohen next to him. It was Darian Dalcourt at center. I know for a fact you could see the back of the helmet that J.C. Latham was out there. You could see the lathe. And so it looked like that Tyler Steen, a couple of, I think today was practice number 6. I think you're actually starting to see him get earning the opportunity to work with the first team. And if that's who Nick Saban was referring to, then I think that's a very, positive step, because we know that Tyler Steen is the biggest attribute that he brings to the table is that he's a very physical styled player. And if Nick Saban's talking about J.C. Latham being physical, I think Alabama missed that a little bit last year. They need dogs on the offensive line, and I think they might have found a couple in Tyler Steen and J.C. Latham.
here with Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. Let's play that clip of Coach Saban talking about J.C. Latham.
Now, well, he's made a lot of progress. He's a lot more confident. He's very physical. I think he's got a better understanding of, what he's supposed to do, why it's important to do it that way, how he's supposed to do it, and he's playing extremely well. I'm pleased with both tackles, so far in camp.
All right, that was Coach Saban talking about the offensive line, and Clint, we appreciate you jumping on here. I'm going to take you guys' calls right now inside the call-in line. We're going to put that number up for you guys. We already got 2 calls in. Clint, keep up the great work. I know that you have the fine detail to the team, which we appreciate. Go back and read Clint's great work. Has a really good story right now talking about what now after JoJo Earle. And of course, we were all over the news as it happened. It was, sometimes it happens in our industry where someone from the message board brings something and it's true, but we're trying to confirm it. And then we got together as a group collectively and we said, hey, we're listening to Coach Saban. Let's let Coach Saban break the news rather than say something that, could be detrimental to the athlete, to the team. And I think that's certainly the way that, we like to do things. So thank you very much for following us at Bama Insider. Follow Clint R. Lamb on Twitter. Does a fantastic job. I'm sure you guys are already following him. And Clint, great job on the video. We're really, really impressed with what you bring to the table to Bama Insider, and we'll catch you next time.
Absolutely, Kyle. I appreciate you having me on, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Absolutely. Clint Lamb, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Let's fire up the call-in line. What's good, everyone? Kyle Henderson, Bama Insider. I love, the Wednesdays. I think Wednesday is going to be the time when I take your calls and we kind of get together and kind of do the round robin. You call me, I give you my feedback, and vice versa. We already got a call-in line. Chris will take the call and put the name on the screen, and away we go. We got our first call. We're going to take it away, and I believe we got Jerrick from Buffalo. Jerrick, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Just listening to the fine work that you fellas providing with Bama Insider.
Man, don't you think Clint does a great job?
Oh yeah, man. He was on it. He was on point, man. I agree with everything he said.
Yeah, he's been such a great addition. I have a lot of respect for a lot of the team writers in this particular industry, because when I got here, learning about, all the different entities and all the sites. And of course we had Tony Tsoukalis. He's still with Rivals, and, the grind of those guys, they do such a great job. And now that we have Clint Lamb, he's doing a really great job for Bama Insider. On the line with Jerrick from Buffalo, Bills Mafia. It's closer. It's the NFL. I know that's when you like to shine, and the Bills have a lot returning. But we're talking Alabama football today. Let me ask you a question before you ask me a question, Jerrick. JoJo Earle, the injury, what does it mean, the magnitude? And when you look to Alabama, is Christian Leary the guy that we turn to? With Aaron Anderson also out, I know people were excited about him, but he has a knee injury. So you have 2 big injuries at the wide receiver spot before we even get going. You also have Cam Latham, who's going to miss that game against Utah. Take it away, Jerrick.
Yeah, man. I think it's a big loss for us, only because definitely you're talking about a player that we could a lot of people compared him to Jalen Waddle, even though we all know he's not Jalen Waddle. I mean, it's not just his speed, but just the short area of quickness. That's something that we've kind of been missing. And Slade Bolden was, for the most part, was a phenomenal IQ player, very, very tough, had the hands. But, from an athletic standpoint, he just didn't really have the short area quickness and the vertical speed that Jalen Waddle provided for us in the slot. And even then, we had Henry Ruggs a couple years prior that, that was kind of his responsibility and how he can stretch the field down vertically from that position. So to lose, some players like that, especially a player like JoJo Earle that can provide those sort of attributes to the game, that's a big loss. I think another huge concerning part of it is that this is kind of like last year, how last year we had Jamison, we had John, we had Slade, but we knew that if one of those guys kind of went down, that we all knew it was going to be detrimental for the team because we lacked depth. We did not have enough playing, we did not have enough playing time for a lot of those younger guys to get in there and have experience. We were in a lot of tight ball games last year. So, this is kind of, hopefully it's not deja vu, but it's kind of like that in a way, to a point where, we're going to have a lot of those younger guys. They have to step up to the plate. So hopefully this is not a huge issue for us moving down the line. I mean, hopefully we can have Harrell, get to 100% and everything's all right. Cameron Latu, we all know he's going to miss the first game against Utah State, but hopefully we can get him back. Hopefully he can be 100% and everything else can be fine moving down forward. But, there's definitely going to be a question as far as just concern. It's, because, you look at some of our players, Jermaine Burton, one of the concerns that a lot of Georgia fans have with him was not his talent. It was, can he stay on the field? I mean, he had a lot of soft tissue injuries. So, that is something that is concerning, is that, I'm not doubting the talent and the ability that he can have, because I know what he can bring from just the slot, but also how he can stretch the field vertically, which is an underrated aspect of the game. But just the fact that, can he stay healthy? So this is a little bit concerning that we're starting to lose a lot more players, especially when we're literally 3 weeks away from the season. So hopefully everything can work out, man. But definitely something that definitely is a little concern for us.
Jerrick, you got a question for me when you look to this Alabama team offensive line? We talked a little bit about it with Clint. We talked about the outside edge rushers. Braswell looks like he's another name that's starting to stand out. What else is on your mind?
What are you getting? Because what are you getting for the guys in the interior? That's kind of one of my questions. Like, who are some of those dogs that you're kind of, we had, the Christian Barmore, we had the Fedarian Mathis type, even the Quentin Williams type, where we had guys that kind of popped off, the guys that popped off your screen at times, but they were more rotational players. You could see the potential, but just wasn't really there yet. Are there any of those players that could step up and maybe be those 1 year type guys? Maybe a Byron Young, maybe an Igbogbe, maybe a Timothy Smith. Is there any of those players that you see? Because we talk about William Anderson, we talk about Dallas Turner and the depth, and even with Chris Braswell and Jeremiah Alexander and the rest of those guys, but we never really talk about the interior of that defensive line. Are there really any of those guys that you see that could be one of those Fedarian Mathis, Christian Barmore, Quentin Williams type of players?
I think that's an excellent question. We're on the line with Jerrick from Buffalo. Call line is 205-850-1994. Look, Jerrick, I think when you look to the defensive line is going to have so many guys that you can rotate based on the situation, based on the down and distance. For example, I think in short yardage situations, when Alabama really is down there in the trenches, you can rely on guys who are big, experienced. DJ Dell. I know a lot of people know about DJ Dell. It seems like he's been here for such a long time. You had Jamarian Latham, another big body individual. I look for a guy that I think could be one of those dogs you're asking about is Tim Smith. I think that Tim Smith could have that breakout year that we're all kind of waiting for. I think Byron Young is another experienced name. I think Justin Igbogbe is very undervalued within this team. I think Coach Roach has a lot of names to really rotate in, but I think in terms of somebody who could be big, bad, angry, I think that could be Tim Smith. I want to see him, throughout these next couple of weeks, what he can do in terms of providing pressure up the middle of the field, because I think stopping the run is something that Alabama is going to be able to do. But I want to see some interior pass rush, just like you. I want to see if Tim Smith can be that guy. I believe it could be. I mean, there's some people that, want to see that as well. And there's other guys who, could step up in that role. I think Jamarian Latham and, maybe Jamel Burrows. Those could be some other names to kind of know within those trenches, but there's a lot of names to really rotate for Coach Roach. And I think we're just going to have to see, but man, missing Barmore was, he played with a fire, right? He played with a different level of mentality. One more question, Jerrick, get it in, man.
Yeah. Also too, man, like, what do you see from our linebacking core a little bit there? Because we all know Henry T is going to be that guy. And I think a lot of people kind of criticize him a little bit because he couldn't really just, you felt like he couldn't really grasp the playbook a little bit. And then there was also some physicality concerns with this game, how, for the most part, if you go back and watch the early of the season, right, you saw some things where he was kind of not really engaging with a lot of the offensive linemen, but he would try to kind of run around them a little bit, and it would just cause these gigantic holes. And so there was some questions of the physicality. Of course, he got better with that over the season. But kind of the point I'm getting at is that a lot of people feel like he's not really a true Mike. They kind of feel like he's more of he's more of a weak outside linebacker. So, are there any players, maybe outside of, Henry T, or even playing right next to him? Because we don't know. I mean, for the most part, from what I'm getting, maybe, it's competition for over there. Are there any players from that linebacking position that's really catching your eye, maybe besides the Henry T's of the world?
You know what? That's a great question. I think the inside linebackers are going to be fantastic to watch. One player that I think you guys should definitely know about is Jaheed Campbell. I know he's young, but I think he has a lot of the attributes to really be a standout. Of course, Deontay Lawson is probably another name within that group. Ian Jackson, he's been here for, a year now. So I think that he could also be another guy to make a splash. There's a lot of interior linebackers that we're going to keep our eye on. I really like the Campbell young man, and I love that pipeline to IMG. Of course, several guys from IMG over the last couple of years, and they've all seemed to make their way onto the field one way or another, right? You look at Evan Neal, Trey Sanders, JC Latham getting a lot of pub now, and then Jaheed Campbell, I think, could certainly be another guy at the interior backer spot to step up. I don't know if it's going to be early in the season or at whenever, but I think when his name is called, I think just because of his overall athleticism, he's going to be somebody who really stands out. I'll tell you what, I'm keeping my eye on Jalen Moody. Look, I mean, he's been here for a long time. He's waited. He could have, I believe he did enter the transfer portal, stepped out. Obviously,
Yeah.
he spoke with the coaches, and I think the coaches said, look, you have what we are looking for, that inside linebacker spot. Come back and take it over. And that's what he's doing right now. So I think he's showcasing his athleticism. We've seen him a lot of over the past couple of years within the special teams. So I'm pulling for Moody, to be honest. I think that would be a great story because we don't see a lot of players really stick through that whole process anymore. And he's been here for several seasons. So hopefully he has his opportunity. And I think him and Henry Toto are going to do a great job at the inside spot. So I'm going to let you go, Jerrick. Thank you so much for batting leadoff for us right here on Bama Insider. Calling anytime, man. You got the number. We got yours, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All righty, man. You guys have yourselves a good night.
All right. Jerrick from Buffalo batting leadoff. Almost said cleanup, but I mean, he's such a great leadoff hitter. I want to hear from you guys inside the comment box. Shawn, get in there. Inside linebacker play. What other guys are you looking at as, players that you're looking forward to seeing that second year development from? Or maybe a guy that could be a freshman that could potentially get on the field. Want to hear from you guys in terms of the inside linebacker play. We got some great footage of those guys working with Pete Golding today. Let's go ahead and take our next call. We got a 205, been patiently on the line. Good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Chris from Birmingham, Alabama. How you doing, Kyle?
Hey, what's up? How you doing tonight?
It's all good, man. It's another lesson, another day, another lesson in line. Congratulations on your position, Kyle. Like seeing you like that. Let's see. As far as the
Chris, right?
injury,
Chris,
yeah.
Is it Chris?
Yeah.
Could you speak up a little bit more? I think you're coming in just a little bit low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit better. But go ahead, Chris. Take it away, man.
So congratulations on your position, Kyle. Seeing you like that. You deserve it. As far as the injury to JoJo Earle, man, you thought we beat the injury bug last year because the injury bug was Flake put running back on to when we had to put Chris Leary back in the running back position, right? So. And funny is, that's the funny part. I said in the postseason, after the season, I said our downfall might be injuries, and well, on the whole, that's what beat us in final two games, really. As the saying goes, next man up, and I hope everybody gets healthy.
Hey, Chris, I'm gonna answer you on the other line because you're a little bit low. Next time when you call, we'll try to fix your volume, but obviously you're talking about the injury, so I'll catch you next time. Thanks for calling in, Chris.
No problem.
Chris from Birmingham. Call line. We're going to take our next caller in just a minute. But the call line, Chris, can you put the call line bigger at the bottom of the screen? 205-850-1994. Chris brought up a great point. I mean, when you look to last year and the way the Alabama season ended, and clearly it had a lot to do with John Mechie and Jamison Williams not being healthy for Bryce Young. Plain and simple. Those guys are healthy towards the back end of the year. I think things are different for Alabama. Call line is 205-850-1994. My name is Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider. Talking about the impact of JoJo Earle at the beginning of the show and things that transpired to Alabama last year in terms of the injuries. I mean, I think when you look to the wide receiver room right now, it's a little bit concerning to me that you have Aaron Anderson slot, you have JoJo Earle slot, and you have Cam Latham. All those guys are going to be missing the first game of the season. Potentially, the second. I mean, JoJo Earle, he said, what was it, 6 to 8 weeks or something like that? So it is concerning to have those guys injured at the beginning of the year. Another fact that was interesting to me was I think 4 of those guys are all freshmen. They just got here to Alabama and now they're injured. So clearly not what you want to see. We'll go ahead and take our next call, which is a 256, and the call line is open, 205-850-1994. So be sure and get your call in. So we'll take the 256 now. How you doing tonight? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with and where you calling in from? You there? Try it again. Hey, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with and where are you calling in from? Looks like we dropped that call. Let's take another one. We got one just came in. Hey, good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with and where are you calling in from?
This is Robert from Mobile.
Hey, what's up, Robert? Long time no talk,
Hey, man. Yeah, it has been a long time.
Yeah, it's been
like the beer. I kind of grew one myself.
Yeah, no, beer life is a different life. It's really good to hear from you. First of all, before we get into it, how are you doing, man? Are you doing okay? Is life going well for you?
Oh yeah, going just fine. Just waiting for the countdown. What's the countdown? 24 days? Is that what last I heard?
Yeah.
For the kickoff?
I saw that. Somebody tweeted out a video of Terrell Lewis. Remember, I love Terrell Lewis. He was such a great linebacker for Alabama. So much athleticism. I remember his wingspan was just so long. So we got to do 24 out.
And who's the first victim? Opponent.
you got the Utah State Aggies, but somebody oddly enough bet on the Utah State Aggies to win the national title game. I think it was like one of the few teams.
Oh wow! Yeah, and their first opponent to Alabama, and they're still going to win the national title game.
But they placed like this like insanely large bet. It was like, I don't know. It was like, you can look it up, but somebody placed like $5 or $10,000 on the Utah State Aggies to win the national title. So I don't know. But anyways, long story short, 24 days away. What's on your mind, Robert? Take it away.
No, just waiting for the kickoff. I guess they can survive, get throttled by Alabama the first game of the season, and somehow manage to pick themselves up and off the mat and win it. No, that's not going to happen. They're going to be they're going to be victimized in the first team because Alabama's come out the gate ready to go. They're going to come out the gate ready to prove that last year was a fluke. It was a rebuilding year, despite what Paul Feinbaum says. It was a rebuilding year. It's not just an excuse. All the players they lost to the NFL draft the season before, and realistically, they shouldn't even been anywhere near it, the national championship. But Bryce Young and Will Anderson turned into phenoms, and was able to propel a team beyond what it really should have been. So yeah, it was a rebuilding year. It ended disappointingly. I wish that Bryce and the rest of the players wouldn't think of it as last season as a failure. I know they do because the standard's so high for Alabama, but it wasn't a failure. I mean, it was an overachievement, actually. But, I mean, it's the standard in Alabama. It's championship. They come in to win championships. So we don't think it's a failure. The fans don't. But, okay, you guys think it's a failure? Now what are you going to do about it? And I think they're coming out of the gate with ready to pound teams into the dust. Last season, they started out a little slow, trying to feel themselves out, and figure out what the team was going to look like. It took a while for we to figure out what the offensive line was going to look like. Mm-hmm. But this season, I look for them to hit the ground running and just take names and kick butts from day one. And Texas will be the next victim. Sorry, you're just in the way. But the real game is going to be against Texas A&M. That will be the game. With all the bad blood that's been built up over the last few months, especially with Jimbo and his narcissistic talk and all that stuff. Whether you try to walk it back, but hey, the players heard it. It's in their mind, and you're going to come into Bryant-Denny, my friend. So sorry, you talk your team into a butt whooping. So I'm definitely ready to get kicked off, and ready to see this team reach its heights. Now, this season is a championship or bust season. I didn't really think last season was, but this season is. It's with the talent they got and the defense, it's championship or bust.
Yeah, I of course, and I've said this kind of at the beginning of the season and we're on with Robert from Mobile, Alabama. 205-850-1994 is the call-in line. I mean, the season ends in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, and I think it's incredible if Bryce Young is able to get to that title game, lead this team there, and play his title game really in his hometown, right? I think that would be really amazing for all these guys. And look, the expectation is a title. Whether or not you want to say that last year was a rebuilding, who cares? I mean, this is the year that we're focused on. We know what we have to do. We know that Alabama has the components to really make a run at this every single year they do. But when you have leadership, most importantly on the defense and offensive side, what else do you expect? These guys are, they're locked and loaded. And I think, hearing from these guys early in the preseason, the leadership is there. The injuries are a little bit concerning, but kind of getting to your point, when you look to that Texas A&M game, that's a game that everybody has circled. Robert, before we talk about Texas A&M too much and kind of everything about Jimbo Fisher, your take on Texas, because Texas is a team that has so many names from Alabama. Steve Sarkisian, Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood, Jalil Billingsley, Ajay Hall, Killen Robinson. Last year they had Ben Davis. Texas, this is their Super Bowl. This is the biggest game that Texas has played in who knows how long, because they get Alabama Crimson Tide at Austin. Now, let me ask you, if Texas somehow is able to keep this game close, I mean, can you imagine what this does for their program? Even if they keep the game close within 10 points, I mean, they're going to be able to live off this game. I personally think that Alabama drubs Texas. I think that Anderson and I think Turner are going to be too much for Texas outside their tackles. But can you imagine if Texas plays Alabama close, what it'll do for them in terms of their momentum? I mean, they're looking forward to is playing Alabama, and if they can play them close, that'll do so much for their program. Your take on kind of that Texas Alabama, not necessarily the matchup, but Texas having a shot at Alabama.
Oh, there's no question. I think the two Texas teams are going to be the benchmark for Alabama early on in the season. That if Alabama drubs both of them mercilessly by 21 points or more, and it's not even close from beginning to end, the rest of college football is going to be officially scared to the point of where, we can't beat this team. If like you said, they hang close, it boosts Texas without a doubt. And shows that Sarkisian has them going in the right direction, which is all they want right now. It's a sign they're going in the right direction. With NIL, they managed to recruit certain players that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And that's what NIL is going to do. It's going to make a lot of teams bring a lot of programs back that weren't there, that weren't going to ever make it back. You're going to eventually see the Oregons come back, the USC's come back because of you name, image, and likeness. And let's come on. Despite what Jimbo Fisher said, players are being bought. Everybody knows that. Nick Saban just said the quiet part out loud. Mm-hmm. But they're buying players, and this is going to happen. So, but it's not going to happen this season enough to beat Alabama. So, if they hang close, if it's 10 points at the end of the game, then it's huge for Texas, and they'll sow doubt in the team a little bit, but it works for to give the rest of college football hope that hey, this team isn't unbeatable, and we play our game, we can pull this out, and the same with Texas A&M. So Alabama has to make their statements early and often.
And I agree with you. And we're on the line with Robert. Robert, we have another call coming up, but I want to make this one point. I personally think that Nick Saban, I mean, the Texas game isn't even on his radar. I mean, he's thinking about tomorrow. And he would be livid if we're even talking about Texas because he wants to focus about the scrimmage than at Utah State. But I honestly think come game time that Nick Saban will send such a message to Texas for recruiting, for a lot of other reasons. And I think that he's literally going to drop the hammer. I think he has respect for Steve Sarkisian. How could he not? I mean, him and Steve Sarkisian did some great things together. Clearly, there was no way that Steve Sarkisian could turn down a job at Texas. I mean, the magnitude of just being a coach at Texas, I think, Texas has so much allure about it. And of course, they can pay you whatever you want. But I think from the standpoint of like sending a message to the world of college football, especially to Texas specifically, I think Nick Saban drops the hammer, and I think Alabama really sends a message in Austin. Give me your final take, final question, something like that, Robert, before we get to our next call.
Nope, totally agree with you. Those two games early on, but those two Texas games, they're going to be early enough in the season to where if you want to send that message, you do it like Georgia did last season. Where everybody was doubting could they beat Georgia because Georgia was sending a message when they beat the first team, Clemson. Although Clemson turned out to be a bust, we all knew it later on, but we didn't think Clemson was at the beginning. That was a huge message, and Georgia built off that for the rest of the season. Now Alabama at full strength showed that hey, when we're at full strength, you can't beat us, and it's not close. So you got lucky that we lost our two best receivers, Georgia, and we still almost beat you. You're not going to get lucky again. So look out. Yeah, it's going to be a message sent early. The first few games are definitely going to be not just Alabama winning, but Alabama sending the message. All right, buddy. It's great talking with you.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Robert. All right. It's Robert down in beautiful Mobile, Alabama. We'll take our next caller in just a second. And we got a 256 coming in. But I just wanted to point that out just because when you look at the schedule, clearly like Texas, all they can focus on probably is Alabama and having a shot to play the Crimson Tide, especially having the game in Austin. I know for those of you going to Austin, I'm sure you're super excited just because Austin is such a great place to check out college football and just hang out in general. So I think we're all looking forward to that game between Alabama and Texas. But of course, Alabama first has a scrimmage this Saturday. And we'll hear from Nick Saban following that scrimmage right here on Bama Insider. If you could do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. If you're new to our channel, if you could become a subscriber, that would be fantastic. If you want to do more for us than just be a subscriber, you can hit the member button at the bottom of this video to become a member of our video. Super chats are appreciated. They are not forced. Thumbs up are just as great. So help us with a thumbs up. And then again, we just recently got to 75,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is really amazing to think that we started this from the ground up and where we've built this. And it's really because of you. We've been trying to add more content to the channel. Andrew Bone's doing a great job. I think Clint Lamb is doing great. Want to get Jimmy Stein more in the mix because he's a wealth of knowledge. And of course, Mick Gillespie, Trey Yanity, also behind the scenes. We have him full-time at On3. All these guys, we brought them all to On3 and really happy that these guys are part of the team at On3. We'll take our next call and we'll take it right now. Hey, good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Kyle, how you doing, man? This is Shawn from Huntsville.
What's up, Shawn? How you doing, man?
My bad for earlier, man. I had a few technical difficulties. People was calling me and my daughter. I had a few technical difficulties. I apologize.
No, you're good, man. You're busy. It's all good, man. We're all busy. So JoJo Earle goes out. Your kind of take on that slot position. Clearly,
Right.
thoughts and prayers with his family because I think sometimes we lose sight of that. I mean, these guys work so hard to get here. Their families are, in another state, for example, JoJo's family out in Texas. They hear the news. Sure, it's really difficult for them, but I think the strength and science component will get him back to where he needs to be faster than we anticipate. Your thoughts, though, on kind of how that could impact the offense? I know it's early, but still there'll be some sort of impact early on in the season.
I hate it for JoJo, man. He practiced hard. He was going to have a great season. Hopefully, it's not a big bone. Hopefully, it's a smaller bone and heal faster. You know, I was very devastated by it. You know, I hate to see that young man because I think he got hurt last year with a knee in the middle of the season. If I remember, he went out for a few games and came back. But I will say this: here's the good news. Here's the good. If you can take this as good news. The running back position and the wide receiver position are the two most easy positions for high school kids to transition from high school to college. We have some great young wide receivers. These guys are just going to step up and play. I think Christian Leary would be extremely efficient at that spot. He had a great A-Day. Yeah. From the couple little sources I have down there. He just got to learn all the positions. Christian got to learn the X, the Z, and the H. He has to learn all three. When we had Devontae and Jalen and all those great receivers and Judy and Ruggs, those guys knew all three positions, so they were interchanging. You could put them in at whatever position. Christian has to go in, work hard, learn all three positions, and be consistent, and he'll play. I think Harold, the new guy from Louisville, I just think he's having a tough time right now, which is understandable. J-Mo's first couple of weeks was a little different, even coming from Ohio State. Coming to Bama, it's a big transition. It's a different breed of practice, not necessarily athlete, but it's a different breed of practice. It's a fast-paced practice. You know, Coach Saban demands everyone practice hard. There's no lacking. I think his favorite words is on the hop, meaning you can't walk to the next drill. You can't walk to the next coach. Everything is fast-paced. So these guys come in that's not from this system and like, whoa, you know, it's totally different. It's totally, totally different. But I think we'll be fine. I think JoJo will be okay. If it's just a bone in the foot, I think it'll heal. He'll come back stronger than ever. I think we'll be just fine. I wanted to chime in on what you was just talking about Texas. Listen, if Texas even plays Alabama close, you better believe those guys are going to take that as a moral victory. You know what I mean? If we don't blow them out or they hang around or they make it into a game or a fourth quarter game, you better believe those fans, those players, they are going to take that as a moral victory because Bama is a standard, a measuring stick for everyone. They got a great team down there. Coach Sark, you better believe he knows what we don't like on defense. They got a very, 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 very good running back in Bijan Robinson. Texas is going to be a tough game. They scheduled it at this crazy time, you know, so we got to go in with our minds right, man, to that game. 11 o'clock, their time is I just don't understand why they had it so early. It's crazy. I don't even understand that. But I think we'll be fine, Kyle. I think the young guys just have to step up and they got to be ready. Wanted to say one last thing about our offensive line. I noticed the guys were going back and forth with Darian Dalcourt and Seth McLaughlin. I think it is. From what I saw, I think Darian is a better run blocker than Seth. I think Darian is a more physical blocker in the run game than Seth. I think we ran the ball better when he was in there. He's a more physical run blocker at the point of attack. But I think Seth is a better athlete. He's a much better pass blocker than Darian. Darian struggles in pass protection. Seth excels in pass protection, but struggles a little bit in the run game. So you sort of got the best of both worlds between two people. It's going to be very interesting to see how they run that out, how they work that out. I'd like to see whichever one in there that allows us to be more balanced. You know, I think we threw the ball so many times last year. For the better defenses, I think it was a little easy for them to pattern match us and tee off on us. But I think we'll be fine, man. I think the only thing that concerns me, I don't like I know this sounds really old school and cliche. I don't like when we have all this hype. I just don't like it. I know they're going to give us the love and we deserve it. But I don't want our younger players to read their own headlines. I think that loss will keep us kind of humble, though. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, well, getting back to the offensive line, I think Seth McLaughlin and Darian Dalcourt, that's certainly a position battle that's probably taking place. It looks like Darian's a little bit probably in the lead, but you kind of look back to how Seth played against Georgia in the SEC title game.
Right.
I'm sure the coaches are like, if you can play like that, you can be the center forever. Now, he didn't play like that in the title game. Again, it's going up against Georgia and, their defensive line, but still, that position needs to be solidified. And when you look to the past, 4 seasons, Alabama's the center position has never been one in question, right? I mean, from Ross Pierce-Baker, Bradley Bozeman, Landon Dickerson, I don't think anybody had any question marks about that center position. This year, I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see how that position specifically develops. And I get to your point about kind of the rat poison. I think that Alabama's done a good job of avoiding that rat poison. I mean, it's always going to be there.
Right.
I mean, they were just voted number 1 in the coaches poll. I mean, Georgia's probably like, thank you, right? I mean, now the target is off our back. But, I mean, it really is on Georgia's back. I mean, they're the reigning national champions, and whatever, they did last year was commendable, putting that season together and winning a championship under Kirby. I think, winning a championship's hard at any single sport, especially football. So that's where the target is. I think the players at Alabama know that, they have to be dialed in. I love the fact that they had Larry Fitzgerald come in and talk to the team. And I love how Coach Saban talked to the team or spoke to the media today about what keeps him motivated. You got to love the process. You got to be dialed in. You got to like what you do. You got to be focused. You got to come with it. And when you come with it and you put your best foot forward, then you could be the best person, player, whatever you're going to do. So I thought that was tremendous. I mean, you look at the seasons that Larry Fitzgerald has been putting together for decades. It's really incredible. Back when he was at Pitt to where he finished out, the longevity, keeping his body, his mental in the right spot. Not everybody can do that. So really, people were like, why would he come to talk to Alabama? Because he's one of the best ever, period. Right. That's why he's there. I mean, Coach Saban wants the Mamba mentality members inside the room talking to these guys.
That's right. You are 100% correct, man. I'm excited about the scrimmage game. I want to see how these guys perform. I want to see how the guards perform, being that the guards need to be our most physical guys in the run game. I want to see how our tackles perform, being that we want our best athletes to be on the tackle side, because you got to block outside linebackers who are extremely fast. So I'm anxious to see how the guys do, man. I want to see the young receivers get in early, learn the positions. We'll be fine, man. These guys are hungry. We lost. That's all they thinking about. I think I seen where Emil said they had that second place runner-up trophy on display. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But listen, Kyle, thank you for taking my call as you always do. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Love you guys. Roll Tide to you guys. And as always, we will continue to support.
Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate you, man. Shawn
no problem.
From Huntsville, one of our best callers. Anytime you can get Shawn and Jerrick, even Robert. So I like to build my lineup like a baseball team, right? Jerrick, he's always going to get us on base. Robert's going to move wherever Jerrick's at, whether he hit a double or a single. And then you got Shawn, who's just going to clean up. So I always like to kind of build my lineup like that. But I appreciate you guys calling in. We have another caller that has just chimed in. But like I was saying, I mean, I love the fact that they had Larry Fitz come in and talk to the team. And somebody asked me inside the comment box, and it kind of goes back to Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he said, who's your favorite player? One Way Studios asked me, he's like, who's your favorite player to ever come out of Bama? And it was really easy for me to talk about that because I said Devontae Smith. And the thing I like about Devontae Smith, and you can't throw that Mamba mentality around lightly, because I think there's just certain people that have it, right? Like Kobe clearly, had it and described it perfectly. But I think Devontae Smith was the first one there, the last one to leave. Caught, 150 balls after practice. Didn't say anything, just came to work, just showed up from a small town in Louisiana, didn't let anything stop him. They said he was too light, he was too small. He didn't care. He came out and he performed every single game at the highest level. I've never seen a player more icy that wanted the ball more than Devontae Smith. So when I looked at all the great players that I've covered, being here at the University of Alabama, and you've seen, tons and tons come out every single year because there's so many first-round draft picks. I mean, Devontae Smith is just cut from a different cloth. Also, I have a ton of respect for all of these guys, of course, but just the way that they carry themselves as grown men when these guys are not even 25 years old yet, really remarkable, because it takes a long time to develop yourself as a human as you're going through, right? Like, these guys are dealing with college and all the life that comes with it, and they handle themselves so eloquently. Really props to, these guys for having their mind right as they continue to navigate through college, and of course playing football and all this other stuff that's thrown at them. We'll take another call. We got another call coming in. This is 208. Hey, good evening. Thanks for being patient. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
This is Will. I'm from Savannah, Georgia.
Hey, Will. How you doing tonight? You having a good evening?
Oh, yeah. You got a really great show, Kyle. I really love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Will. I appreciate it. Now, I have to tell you, I went down to Savannah, Georgia for my first time this year, and I'd always wanted to go to Savannah. I'd been to Charleston, and I thought Charleston was beautiful, but I was able to go to Savannah, and I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. I loved all the squares with the big oak trees. Those are my favorite type of trees. And I come from the West, from New Mexico, so we clearly don't have those type of trees in New Mexico. So I love everything about Savannah. I was able to play some golf in Hilton Head. Love the whole area. Thanks for being on the show. What you got for me?
Championships is won to me by offensive line, defensive line. Coach Saban said he want to run the ball more, but you getting away from the meat and potatoes. They don't seem as big across the line as I would like. You look at Georgia. I mean, those guys are huge, but they can move.
Mm-hmm.
When Alabama had DJ Fugler and all those great offensive linemen, they was big and they can move you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was no problem for them to just maul you, set up play action. But this, I mean, the guys look like Jenny Craig players. They're not as thick as I would like to see. I would like to see, I don't know, usually every year they come out with who gained the most weight, who lost the most weight. And that's what I would like to see. Because if you got someone, an offensive lineman who weighs like 310, but you blocking a defensive tackle that's 320, you behind. How you going to move him?
You know what?
You see what I'm saying?
So Will, you know what's really interesting when you look to Alabama's class of 2023, and granted, there's some large men, there's some large humans within this Alabama offensive line, but I get where you're going at. But look at the guys who Alabama has actively recruited for this class of 2023, and I think you're going to be happy with it. And if you haven't checked out the On3 database, I suggest that you do. Chris, if maybe we can go there and look at the Alabama commitments for 2023, because I want to build to Will's point. You have Wilcom Formby, 6'7", 300 pounds. You have Ola Saline, originally from Finland. He's 6'5", 325. You have another offensive lineman on here that is an absolute monster. I mean, so my point is the linemen that you're looking for are soon to be on this team. Now, of course, nobody's going to be what we had with Evan Neal, because he was just a straight mauler. But I get what you're saying in terms of like that meat and potatoes and kind of that offensive line that can just maul you. Now, I guess we have to look at kind of the offense and how it's evolved since Brian DeBall was here. Now, let me get to this, Will. When I first came to Alabama, it was right during when Lane Kiffin left and then Brian DeBall took over. And I think that, and you guys in the comment box, let me know if I'm off base on this. Nick Saban was kind of like a 3-yard in a cloud of dust. Lane Kiffin changed that a little bit. But then what we started to see when Brian DeBall got here was he brought that passing tree from the New England Patriots. And then you started to see the offensive coordinators kind of transform Alabama's offense. And I think that might have been difficult for Nick Saban, because Nick Saban was, used to going defensive heavy. But I think Nick Saban realized that you had to change the game of college football to be more offensive, for a more offensive potency. So we saw Brian DeBall add that passing tree, and then we saw Mike Loxley. Then we saw Steve Sarkisian. Now we're still seeing Bill O'Brien, and kind of how that offensive philosophy has changed in essence to put more points on the field. And I'm curious to see if that has kind of changed the offensive line personnel that they have recruited. But I get what you're saying, Will. But the offensive lineman, and it looks like Alabama is in good contention tomorrow with the McVay kid, which would be a gigantic land for Alabama. But do you get what I'm saying, Will, in terms of like changing the actual offense and kind of how things are working right now?
Yes, but still, I watched the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that game, Georgia offensive line was just beating our defensive line to death.
Mm-hmm.
They hurt Padarius Mathis at the end of the game because they were just killing them. We can't go against offensive linemen with usually, back then 300 pounds was just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But now when you go against offensive linemen that's 330, they're gonna move your little butt right out the way. I mean, you're gonna have to really tighten up. Now, it's a junior college player. This is what I want to ask you. It's a junior college player. He's a defensive lineman. I think his last name is Davis. But look him up. I watched his video. He's 6'4", 300 and something pounds, and they got that guy playing middle linebacker, Kyle.
He's a monster.
Check it. Okay. Yes. Have you seen this video?
No. Somebody, if somebody knows who Will's talking about, post his name in the comment box and we'll check him out. We'll put him up on the screen.
If you watch that video, Kyle, you will be a huge fan of this guy.
All right.
I mean, he's running quarterbacks and running backs down at an angle. To me, 300-some pounds of middle linebacker in junior college, that's awesome. That's somebody I'm looking for.
What else you got for me, Will?
One more thing. You got an outstanding show, Kyle, and I'm a big fan.
Well, thank you very much.
Keep doing what you're doing, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Will. We appreciate your support. Calling anytime. Savannah, Georgia is so beautiful. I hope you make some time for the great city and walk around. I know I would if I was there. So Will, call in anytime. And, you got a friend here in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, come back for St. Patrick's Day. You will. It's amazing.
Okay. All right. St. Patty's in Savannah. We'll go hang out, Will. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. All right. Will in Savannah, Georgia. Hey, we got a super chat. Hey, One Way Studio. I appreciate it, man. Maybe I'll save that $5 to buy myself a beer on St. Patty's Day back at Savannah. Hey, you know what? One thing that I want to say, I got another call coming in. But if you're out there and you have served in the United States military, any branch, let me know inside the comment box. Thank you for doing an amazing job for our country. We appreciate you guys. That has never gone underappreciated for our family. So let us know inside the comment box if you have served for this great country. I'd like to give you some respect on the screen. Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider, coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You guys have seen the show evolve from, the last 5 years. I kind of look back to, the earlier shows, without the beard and stuff. Same old G though, same old guy talking Alabama football. So call into the show anytime, 205-850-1994. I'll take the next call and away we go. Hey, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Hunter from Hartford, Alabama.
Hunter, what's up, man? How you been, man? Did you have a good day?
Yeah, man. How about you?
Good, man. What was for dinner?
I had a Subway sandwich.
Subway sandwich? Really? Okay. You know what? That's fine with me. I like Subway. Anytime we get to pull in the Subway, I'm all about it, man. I'm gonna get a 6-inch sub. I'm gonna get chips. I'm gonna get a drink, and I'm enjoying myself. Those jalapeno chips
You gotta
that
get
have,
you gotta get the 6-inch Italian herbs and cheese chicken bacon ranch sub with lettuce and ranch dressing.
man.
That's my sandwich.
Yo, that sounds good. I'd actually probably have one right now. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, what's on your mind, man? Take it away.
Yeah, so we got this injury with JoJo Earle. It just came out today. He's injured. So a guy that I'm really interested to see step up in this offense is Christian Leary. We got to see him some last year. One game that stuck out to me was the Mississippi State game when he got a couple of really good catches in there. I think it was just him having to learn the offense last year and coming into this year. I think this now, even though, of course, I don't wish any of our players to get hurt, but now with JoJo not being able to play at the beginning of the season, maybe this is his time to step up and show what he can do.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. And by the way, civilian salute to Eric out there, who's a veteran from the great city of Mobile, Alabama. Roll Tide, we appreciate you. Hunter, I think you bring up a great point. I think Christian Leary, with that speed that he has to burn. I mean, we've been talking about that speed for several seasons, and I think with the limited opportunities that he had, maybe this could be the year where we start to see some emergence of Christian Leary. So I really like that take on him. What else do you kind of like from that receiver standpoint, or other guys that you might have questions about?
I really think there's going to be some freshmen that are going to have a chance to step up in certain situations. We've seen it last year. Where Ja'Cory Brooks as a freshman was able to come in and step up in the Auburn game. So, Nick Saban doesn't mind giving these freshmen chances to show what they can do. So, a guy like sticks out to me is Kendrick Law. I think he can be he might be a very, very productive player for us.
Chris, if we could get Kendrick Law on the screen, or Amari Niblack, or Shaz Preston, I think you're absolutely right. Kendrick Law was somebody who got some attention from Coach Saban during the springtime. And Hunter, we're going to get some photos of these guys now, but Shaz Preston, beast. Kendrick Law, beast. Amari Niblack, beast. These are some big wide receivers. We got a photo coming up right here of this is Kendrick Law, and as you can see, I think that's a great call, Hunter. I think adding Kendrick Law, look at this. This is a big dude. Everybody knows how big Malachi Moore is to the left. You have Eli Ricks to your right, number 7, and here's Kendrick Law making a reception across the middle right there. So someone's saying Dow Jones Bell down at the bottom, which I think is another good name. I think you're right. What's I don't want to ask you for expectations, but what are your thoughts, or the first few clips that we've seen of Amari Niblack? Have you had a chance to see any of those, Hunter?
Yeah, I watched his highlight tapes from high school. I follow recruiting very closely. So when I've seen what he was able to do on his highlight tapes, and then just knowing that this is a guy who, wasn't very highly recruited until he showed up to camp at Alabama. And once he showed up to camp and was able to show what he could do, and the coaches staff really, really liked him, I think he can be, him along with Robbie Utes, could be a very good, combination at the tight end position with, Cam being hurt. And, maybe Cam's not hurt for too long, hopefully, because I really like Cam. So I think we're going to have, I think this might be one of the most, of course we're Alabama. So, people are not going to underestimate Alabama, but, a lot of people are going to look at this wide receiver group and go, they're young. But we also have a lot of experience returning. Trayshawn Holden got some good reps last year. We lost, 2 great players, but we also return a lot of guys that I think can be very productive from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for a clip real quick. because somebody asked me inside the comment box about Tyler Harrell, and I had a clip. I'm trying to see if I could find it. And basically, I mean, Bryce Young addressed, Tyler Harrell and said that, what he's seen from Tyler Harrell early on, and he seemed like he was pretty impressed with him. Now, we haven't seen any footage of Tyler, and people keep asking about, for footage of him, but we keep getting footage of Ja'Cory Brooks, Trayshawn Holden, Dow Jones-Bell a couple times. So I think reading between the lines, Alabama is saying focus on these guys specifically because these are the guys who, were here last year, the guys that are working. And I think it's just going to be a little bit of time until we see Tyler Harrell. And again, like if there's any news, we'll bring that to you. But I don't think there's been like, some marquee event to where why we haven't seen him just yet. Hunter, give me one more take before we move to our next caller.
Oh yeah, and don't forget about Aaron Anderson as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing I got for you tonight is I'm the one that hit you up on Instagram on Twitter about putting these episodes on these shows on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think is that something you could do, man? Because I really like being able to. Sometimes I miss shows,
mm-hmm.
and if I can listen to them in a podcast format while I'm at work, it really helps me bypass the time. So I know you used to do that at one point. So I was wondering if that was something you can start doing again.
Cool. I'll answer on the other side, Hunter. But thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate it. Call in anytime. Such a great caller. I know you've been calling in kind of since the beginning. So anytime you want to call in, man, you got a place with us. Cool.
I mean, roll tide.
Roll tide to you, Hunter from Hartford, Alabama. Yeah. So the podcast, I guess I'll have to get with the crew on that because I'm just basically seeing the Alabama YouTube channel along with some other properties for On3, some big picture stuff. But if a podcast is something that you guys are interested in, because I know Clint does a podcast with Jimmy, but if maybe we want to add some of these shows to that podcast platform, then, I'm open to it, however you guys want to get the content. And if that's something that you guys are in, I appreciate it. So just let me know. But yeah, Hunter, we will definitely get together collectively as a group and, kind of get together in that aspect. We got another call coming in from 205. We'll take that right now. Hey, good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Kenneth in Birmingham.
I'm sorry, I missed your first name.
Kenneth.
Kenneth, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Everything's going good.
What was for dinner, Kenneth?
Rotisserie chicken and mashed potatoes.
Oh my goodness, man. You're making me hungry. Rotisserie? Jeez. Oh man. Jeez, that sounds so good. All right. Anyways, go ahead, Kenneth. Take it away, man.
Let me tell you right now, we did not cook it. It came from the Walmart.
Hey, that's fine though. Who doesn't do rotisserie from, your local grocery store, whether that's Walmart or Winn-Dixie? It's crazy. Before I came out to Alabama, I'd never been to like a Winn-Dixie before. We have Publix. Of course we have Walmart, but we have Albertsons and Smith back in the West. So, same thing, but there's nothing like a Piggly Wiggly. So, anyways, man, take it away. Take it away, Kenneth.
I know you are good with recruiting. Do you think Bama missed out on the top receivers in this last like 3 classes that we had? Cause it feels like Trayshawn's never going to get what we need him to be. Dow Jones-Bell is never going to get what we need him to be. So what's your last year we missed out on Xavier Worthy? I was not happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question because we keep waiting to see like Dow Jones-Bell get on the field, Trayshawn Holden really get on the field. Now, Trayshawn Holden did, spot play last year. Ajay Hall was kind of part of that as well. So that's a really good question. Jalil Billingsley, you could kind of point to that. So you could see, maybe like a wide receiver tight end, a guy who didn't necessarily work out or whatever. I think that's a great question. I'm sure that Alabama's probably asking itself that as well. Because you look at the receivers, that Alabama had over the last 4 seasons. I mean, those are first round guys and guys who played almost immediately during their time here at Alabama, where it really hasn't been the case. Sometimes you miss on guys. Sometimes they go other places. I've kind of been wondering that myself. But with that said, sometimes you just have to give these guys a little bit more time to develop. Right. I mean, maybe we do see a big year from Shawn Holden. Maybe we do see, Dow Jones Bell step up. Maybe we see one of these receivers that we haven't seen thus far really have a breakout year. I mean, it's a long season. As you can see, there's already 2 wide receivers and a tight end that will be missing that game against Utah. So I think that's worth thinking about, Kenneth. But I'm kind of just waiting to see really Dow Jones Bell and Shawn Holden specifically, if those guys can potentially have breakout years or rise up when their number is called, most importantly. What else you got?
And it's the type of receiver that, they're kind of like stockier, kind of bigger than the receiver that we had, the first round guys. Do you think that was like a move Nick Saban did on purpose?
In terms of what, Kenneth?
Like the body style of the receiver that we have now.
Like some of these new freshmen?
No, like Shawn and Ja'Cory Brooks, like on the taller side.
Yeah, well, the thing about
no,
I get what you're saying. So Saban always says this, and this always stuck with me. When he recruits his wide receivers, he recruits them like a basketball team. I think I've said this before. So like you have like your power forward, you like your bigger guys, and then you have like your point guards who are basically like your slots. So I think he likes to get kind of a combination of all of those wide receivers in. Now, I think that they did a really good job this past season, and you kind of look to the body type of some of these wide receivers, and that's something that we've kind of been harping about recently. Kind of the size of a Shaz Preston, Kendrick Ladd, like those are bigger wide receivers. We necessarily haven't seen those bigger wide receivers, within the last couple of years. And I think those guys are going to get on the field. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how those guys continue to develop, but I'm all for it. I'm all about those bigger wide receivers. I mean, you look how productive and how physical you have to be now on the outside, especially on Sundays. I mean, the receivers who are really doing work on the outside are those bigger wide receivers that we see in the NFL. What else you got, Kenneth?
That's it, man. You pretty much answered my question. Thank you.
All right, man. I'm glad you enjoyed the rotisserie. Anytime you want to call from Birmingham, just hit me up, Kenneth. All right, Kenneth out in Birmingham. I mean, we talked about the wide receivers a lot tonight. But we know about Jermaine Burton, but like some of these other guys are just, they're big dudes. I mean, it's impressive to see like that bigger wide receiver. And I wonder if that's kind of something about Alabama's philosophy kind of going forward, or if it's just a coincidence. I think it probably has to do with getting the size on the outside, getting them the football. And because these guys aren't necessarily just possession type players. They're bigger guys that can make you miss on the outside. We got a couple more callers. We'll take them. We got a 334. We'll take it now. I appreciate you being patient. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, Kyle. This is Stephen Floyd. I'm currently living in Mobile, Alabama, but I've lived just about everywhere in Alabama throughout the years.
Did you say Stephen?
I guess my big thing is, Stephen, yeah.
Okay, got you. Go ahead.
So, everyone's talking about defensive line, wide receivers, offensive line. The biggest question mark we've really had over the years is some of our defensive back play, other than some of our, don't count PS2. He's a great player. And then you've got Diggs. We've had one or two guys at corner. But when you really look at our secondary, we haven't been the way that we were under some of the early Nick Saban teams that were so solid all through the secondary on both ends of the corners, safeties, and our nickel play. I'm just kind of curious, obviously you can tell what we're trying to do in recruiting, because we're still hunting for our main outside guy on the edge, which we haven't gotten yet. But I'm guessing I'm just curious as to why we've had so much fall off in the secondary as a whole. We've had great players throughout the years, but you look back at the 2009 team, 2011 team, we really had ball hawks and guys at every spot in the secondary.
Yeah, you know what? It would be hilarious to ask Saban that straight up because he's out there coaching the DBs every single day. So it's like
I know as a guy that has gone to his camp and unfortunately had to go through the senior camp. He was my coach every day of the camp. I know 100% he's out there every single day. I had my fair share of chewings. I'm just so curious as to why there's been so much drop off. Especially like the 09 team is one of my favorites. That secondary was so stacked.
Mm-hmm.
When Justin Woodall, you had a young Mark Barron, a young Dre Kirkpatrick. You had all those young guys going through there, and then you had Kareem Jackson, who went from, as a Bama fan, who we used to get so upset with because he always got burned, always got burned on the edge. And then his senior year with Saban coming in after, I think he was a sophomore in 07, so 08. So he was a senior in 09. So after 3 years with Coach Saban, he's a first rounder and has played in the NFL for almost well over 10 years now.
Man, but you're right. I mean, look at that 2009 Alabama backfield. You have Justin Woodall, Mark Barron, Javier Arenas, Kareem Jackson,
Robbie Green.
Yeah, Jay Kirkpatrick. I mean, it's like unbelievable. Dante Hightower, Rolando McClain, Corey Reamer, Eric Andrews. It's like that. It's ridiculous.
So I'm really just curious. I don't get it. I guess I don't understand why. So it's like a guy like Malachi Moore, who had such a great freshman year. Where did I know he's battling a little bit of injuries, but something that used to be a pride of our defense has been a little bit of a liability over the past couple seasons. As a whole, not that we haven't had great players. That's not to say we haven't had great players come through the secondary. Because obviously we have, just kind of perplexed as to where we've fallen off as a whole in the secondary.
That sounds like a good homework project. And I'd like to kind of look at the Pro Football Focus numbers in terms of coverage grades and kind of pair those up. Even over the last 6 years, I think Pro Football Focus grades would probably have that data and kind of just look at that to see if what we're thinking kind of backs up what you're asking. I think when you look to the corners this particular year, I think there's some concern. And even Coach Saban said that during SEC media days. And he said that, when Kool-Aid is kind of that vet in the room, I mean, Kool-Aid's just a sophomore. I know Eli Ricks comes over with more experience, but he was pretty banged up. You have Kyrie Jackson, who spot played last year. But other than that, they lost their guys. So when you look to the defense overall, there's so many returners, but there's not a lot of experience at that corner spot. I've heard Coach Saban say a couple times that if they needed him to, Brian Branch could also play in that corner spot. But I think that is worth kind of looking at and kind of diving into and kind of understanding that corner position and trying to figure out, is Eli Ricks really going to be that guy that we think he could be? Because I think anytime you have guys on the outside that can play man coverage, press coverage, that can be ball hawks, it's going to allow your defense to do different things, whether that's create more blitzes. And that's something that Alabama is certainly going to do, considering the edge rushers that they have. So we know that William Anderson and Dallas Turner are going to get pressure on the quarterback, but can these guys in man coverage do their job? And that's create interceptions, create, opportunities for the defense to create some of those OSCE opportunities. What else you got for me, Steven?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like kind of just staying on the secondary thing. If you look, you can go back and look at the recruiting class and you can see where Coach Saban changed his mindset, where he realized he's got to have bigger cornerbacks. Not that guys like Javi weren't great, but you can see he saw where college football was going with the wide receivers, where they were getting so big. I mean, straight up like a 6'4" guy running an easy 4.4, 4.3 was not abnormal anymore. It was going around everywhere. He saw guys like Julio on his own team. He realized, holy cow, how can I ask my cornerbacks to defend these types of guys? Yeah. You can tell he started to go in more. We were getting beat by jump balls. Straight up, we were getting beat by just throw the ball up. And so you can tell when and where he went to some of the taller DBs. Yeah, I guess people don't talk about it enough. And I'm, as a DB guy, I'm been so perplexed as to watch us fall off just like over the past 3 to 4 years, specifically the face guarding penalty has been such a common error with our secondary because they don't get their head around to play the ball. And if most of the time, if they were in good coverage, if they would just turn their head around to play the ball, we wouldn't be in such bad shape. I feel like some of our fundamentals has started to slide in the secondary, which is shocking knowing Coach Saban.
Yeah. All right, Stephen. Well, thanks for calling, man. I got to go into my next caller. Thanks for calling in on the DBs. It's certainly an area that we need to focus on, probably even talk more about during our show. So next time that you have time to call in, give me a call. We'll continue to track the DBs. We'll continue to track Ricks, Jackson, Kool-Aid, and continue to track, even the guys behind them, because I think you're right. I think you're on to something. Let's revisit that. Let's table it. Let's continue to track it. Steven, anytime you want to call in, you got a spot right here on the show.
Will do. Thanks, Kyle.
All right. We just had Shawn dip out to go put his kids to bed. I'm about to put my kids to bed too. So we're going to take our last caller and then we're going to put the kids to bed. Okay. So let's take our last caller right here and then go put the kids to bed and get ready for Thursday. All right. We got a 209. Thanks for being patient. You're the last caller of the night. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who are we on the line with and where are you calling from?
Fuck Trump, bitch. Fuck you.
Oh my God, the trolls. It's all good. You know what? A long time ago, the trolls and the people that would call in, they used to get to me, and I would try to be like so perfect and have like these perfect calls. And then I realized that you can't control anybody, right? Like some people are just weird AF, right? Like that person they call in and they try to like disrupt the show, whatever. Honestly, doesn't even bother me because people are crazy, right? But you guys aren't crazy, man. We had a great time on the show. I appreciate you guys talking Alabama football with me. And just like Shawn said, I got kids too, got to put them to bed, got them ready for school. They had school today. Is the first day of school. Big day for all the kids. And if you're a parent out there, you know what we do on the first day of school. We take the photos and make sure all those kids are, fed and ready to go. Thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight here on Bama Insider. We really appreciate you guys. 75,000 subscribers strong. It's really, come a long way. And we appreciate you guys every single day. I hope you guys understand the work that we are putting in for you guys right here on Bama Insider. And here comes the adult chats on the side. It's hilarious. It's that time. It's probably the time that we need to get going to bed. So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I hope you guys have a productive Thursday. We'll be back with more coverage all the time right here on Bama Insider. From beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Kyle Henderson, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next time.